Here, the center circle marks the spot where you hit when you were dropped from somewhere up there as a penalty for going bankrupt. Just random nighttime scenes as I roam around. Almost everything you look at has some interesting or pretty aesthetic architectural attribute. For example, what would that bit of lineage be for? Notice the hooks hanging over the doorway. And what is that building beyond? Whatever it is, it's here. Cute little truck for running around for small businesses. The outside of this building is littered with metal something or other, whether they held flower pots. Notice the ring, but also a hook. And it looks like maybe an animal's head. Let's go look and see. Yeah, it is. Using my superb directional skills to get back up to the Duomo area, I find that I am back at the river having gone exactly the wrong way. So, the simple solution, I suppose, is turn around. America, here we come. This building across the street looks uncannily similar to the Medici building that I was at when I began this morning, but it's far too close to the river. But I'll walk around and see if I locate something familiar. Interesting little intersection that splits off Via degli Strozzi and Via dei Burboni. An arch over a street that looks very much like what we saw in some of the paintings. Still have no clue where I am. Well, by sheer chance, I'm wandering to where I want to go. You orientate yourself in this town not by streets which change constantly, the names I mean, but there's the Duomo, so I'm moving in that direction. Don't know how much of the Duomo this This is an interesting shot because I can get the whole side of the dome as well as the drum beneath the dome. Less than subtle social warning about leaving your bike here too long. So irony of ironies, I'm about ready to finish the day where I started it, the Duomo. I have no idea how this will look at night. No more fitting end of the day scene than the inspiration that brought me here, Brunelleschi's dome. I want to see if I can pick up some of that stained glass. Again from my hostel window, I think that's San Marco's dome, and this is Brunelleschi's famous Duomo. Look at the people standing up on top. They've climbed up those stairway in between the two layers of the dome, if you will. Almost 50 years ago, Frank Milliman, my teacher at Manlius Military School in mathematics, introduced me to the Pines and the Fountains of Rome by, I think it's Respighi, the music. Here's one small example, but interesting and beautiful example. Look at the detail of this. And to imagine that these people live in this kind of an intellectual context, I'm guessing it goes right past them except that which is part of their fiber. Notice how the tails of these creatures that are little pools but little fountains also are where the water drips out of their body pools, if you will, down into this larger pool. And then, as the case with many fountains, particularly in squares I suspect, historically are this source of water, which is not running now, but oftentimes I've seen them run where people actually appear to have been getting water from them. This statue is of Fernando II, who I believe was one of the unifiers of Italy. I think there were 2 or 3 different epochs. Everywhere you look, even behind those buildings, are more buildings that hint of something interesting to look at. And turning immediately around, of course, is the Duomo, which is everywhere present in Florence. When I flew in, I thought, what am I going to eat? I can't speak the language that well. And that is a good example, that gelateria. Yeah, they're everywhere. There's places to eat absolutely everywhere, almost every block. And as soon as I start asking for something in my really bad Italian, like 2 or 3 words, instantly they jump into English. And here, just to show how skilled they were and how consistent they were, is a second fountain, apparently a duplication of the first. But I noticed here are the crabs. Notice down tight, I just noticed that. The detail of this. And everywhere you look, a street beckons you down, not as a dangerous thing, but just as something interesting. I'm actually going to turn right just because I got up so late this morning, which is the first time in decades I can remember having done that. I'm going to turn right and walk down here. So this is the route I'm going to take. It's, I think, due east from the hostel, and a circuitous route down to Piazzale Michelangelo on the other side of the river. I don't know where this is, but I mean what it is, but more art, some old, some new. It's almost as though if you can't do anything artistically in Florence, don't do it. Okay, just to orientate you, this is where my hostel is, right there. And this, I think, is the little dome that you can see, and there's the main dome, Duomo. And I'm walking down here. I went through Piazza San Marco down to Piazza Annunziata, which is where I bought a little pastry. Then I wandered past this building that I didn't know of, but it's the Museo Archeologico. And I'm walking down Della Colonna, and I've just arrived at Piazza de Siglio, which is much closer than I thought. Everything was much closer than I think it is. And I'm now at this corner here of this little park, which actually isn't so small, but a very pretty area that surrounds it. And of course my pedestal for my map is artistic. This beautiful light. Jeez. But what a lovely place to live, right around here, right in the guts of the Renaissance, really, really. Now, just so you know where I'm going, I intend to walk down here off the map and then pick up this street right here, walk down here and go over to Piazza Michelangelo. Well, most of the buildings that I encounter seem to be elegant by my American eye. Just looking at this one, notice the allusions to frescoes of the past. some kind of painting there. It's washing away. It's of a man, I think. But most of what's on the face of that has been painted on. Notice the graphic design up there. I suspect that the upper stories are, and notice that they're higher than the lower stories, are probably residential, and what's beneath it is commercial of some sort or offices. And the two main forms of transportation, I suppose you have to throw in a third called cars, but are bicycles and the scooters. Some of these scooters look pretty heavy duty. Not sure where I am right now. Haven't looked at the map. It looks like a circular kind of a, lack of a better term, intersection or square. Don't know what that is. Obviously old. Could it be one of the towers for the ancient wall? I don't know. One of the interesting things, or neat things about Florence, and perhaps all of Italy, are the signs on the streets that are designed to tell anybody where you're trying to go. There's Pizzali, Michelangelo there. So I go on that street, so I must be at that intersection I spoke of earlier. As an example of the commitment they have to green and to inexpensive mobility, this is their bike path. Something that America should be aspiring to and is, but I'm not sure if we're taking it down to the city level like this. This is apparently a little understatement electrical car. I'm going to wander down this side street just because I want to see the construction techniques or whatever of restoring the old looking streets. What's curious is there's some system of numbering, 888, and then over here there's 1122. I don't know what that means unless there's some photographic record kept of where access to certain utility elements are, like a valve or something like that. The irony, of course, in maintaining the old look, the traditional construction, is it's probably all manual. Which is done here for aesthetics, done in South America for the inexpensive cost of labor. And in here just looks like a restored interior area, but notice the graceful rising arches of the walls. I just think those are the coolest little machines. Some whimsical wall graffiti on a construction site. But notice here the variation in color. Look at this pretty tiled or terrazzo type floor. Interesting. I'm not sure it's pretty, but it's interesting. Lost tourists, don't worry about it. Just look at the signs. Follow the arrows. I guess another Roman tower. And here, if you look reasonably closely, you see that those are filled in archways, perhaps different elevations of the original wall. Looking downriver towards where the Uffizi and the Ponte Vecchio is. Ponte Vecchio.